Hello and welcome to episode 5 of this Let's Play Factorio Space Exploration series. Yeah, in the last episode we built some science and we built some stuff for rocket launches, and we also made it to space, and we built a tiny little insignificant, pathetic, if I can click the right buttons, little platform thing which is going to research some science slowly. And at some point in the very near future, I hope, I'm going to build a much more significant platform here, which is going to be a bit more permanent and doesn't require so much of my interference, because we've run out of lube. And I need some... It's completely stopped because I've run out of lubrication. Alright, so I need to... First step, I need to barrel up some lube, deliver it to the platform, remove this biochemical majose, whatever it is, and replace it with some barreling stuff. And then once I've got that going, kind of crawling pace, it's still pressing the wrong buttons. I want to expand my perimeter wall. That's what I want to do, potentially in all directions. And that was one other thing. In the meantime, between episodes, I got a little bit trigger happy with the artillery the moment they got available to me. So I went and did that. I also kind of did a little bit of exploration, defeated a few biters' nests in here. Not enough, just went a little bit of explore, got down to here and then came back again. And I've also set up some radars, so we've got a much better idea of what's going on in the map around us. And it looks like I've got a lot of work ahead of me. Like, you know, in order to get some kind of primitive wall in here, there's just, I don't know, 20, 30, a lot of these things I'm going to have to clear out. It's a lot of work, That's the current plan, though. Whilst science is going slowly, this is a good opportunity. Whilst I'm still thinking things through with this rocket. I'm still planning it out. I'm still not 100% certain on it. So, let's crack on with those two things, and hopefully we'll work our way towards the rocket. Okay, so I'm just taking a break, probably quite a long break, from defeating some biters, mainly because it's just really hard work with the tools that I've got at the moment. I know that I've picked up some fancy goodies from the platform, and I have had a little play with them, but it's still not enough really to do it properly, to beat them at scale. You know, there's a lot of them. So what I've done is I've just tried to concentrate on the areas where I've been getting attention, which is I was getting a lot of attention down here in this corner. A lot of it for many hours. So I've moved it out to here, and that's given me a lot of breathing space. They're not attacking me anywhere near as much up here anymore. Secondly, down here, you know, originally the wall was in here or something, very small, and basically all of the attention was being directed and concentrated on this tiny stretch of wall. So it was getting a lot of hits. So I've moved it out. That should give me enough. I really want to move. I want to have some space in here, and here, and here. And I really want some more space. Loads of space that I really want, but not going to have for a long period of time. So that's the first thing to talk about. The second thing to talk about is that, just as I suspected, there is a mod which I can connect to a storage tank, and it will display those levels of fluid in a user panel display that we can see up here in the top left hand corner. So we've got my oil levels. I set it up just like I wanted to. What it shows me is that for some reason or other, so I've got I've got two halves to the oil set up. So I've got one set up on each half. I've got a good level of petroleum in the top half, but not in the bottom half. So I need to go and check that out at some point. This is really good. I'm really excited about the potential for this. And in terms of rocket launches, because that's really the thing I've been thinking about, the thing that I've been wanting to do, the thing that I'm getting quite excited about, I've just tried to kind of plan out what's going on in my head. So, you know, this is the cargo rocket. So, I mean, at the moment, I've got a list of 18 different items that I need to load onto this cargo rocket, and this is 21. That 18 doesn't include the rocket fuel or the rocket parts. So that's what these two are doing up here. These are going to be the three delivering the science, and it obviously to filter those off. So I've got one science going to each inserter so that I can control individual inserters, and that will control each science, because at the moment I've got the sciences evenly loaded on each side of a belt. So I've got 21 allotted slots here. I can maybe squeeze in a few more, to be honest, but 18 slots on my list. But this is kind of, I don't know where my mind is. You know, I'm imagining that a lot of people solve this problem with robots, but it's just not in my nature. I like I really like conveyor belts, so I like to solve it with conveyor belts. You know, not everything on my list is deliverable via a conveyor belt, or at least it won't be. Like a pump, like I'm just going to deliver those with robots because I don't need very many of them. But everything else, I think, is going to come through via a conveyor belt. So that's 18 conveyor belts plus rockets and rocket fuel. It's going to be a lot to bring in. So the plan is to bring those. I'm going to extend whatever elements I've got in here already. I'm going to extend those down, the ones that I need. There's a few in here. Bring those down and then feed them in so that they come in underneath the rocket. Then I'll bring down the science, and then hopefully the spare ones I'll leave for this top half, because I can essentially just bring those straight down and straight in, more or less. I might have to do some funky conveyor belt work, and I really want to keep this side free, because this probably isn't going to go here. This is probably going to go over here somewhere. What I want to put here is all my labels and my my lights, all of the basic circuitry that I need to be able to monitor what's going on with these inserters, what's going on with the stuff on the platform. I want to have that panel in here, and then I want to have the big radar dish over here. Now, there's a few other things on this list that I can't bring in immediately because I'm not producing them, and you know, barreled lube, I don't have a mechanism for that in the factory at the moment. And so, you know what, let's have a little chat about barrels, because at the moment I don't really know. Barrels feels like this might be a significant thing that I'm going to need, and I need to develop a strategy for recycling those barrels. Now, in my mind, my immediately go-to is to deliver the barrels on a rocket to the platform, and then to return the barrels with a delivery cannon. That's the current plan. Now, I was just going to return them as barrels, but someone has suggested recycling the barrels. Now, one person suggested recycling the barrels and using that steel on the platform, which I don't really want to do. I'm going to kind of a circular process. I want anything that's not required ejected, and if I need that steel, I want this process that delivers the steel to the platform to be independent of that, because that would interfere, and I don't want the two to interfere. I want the delivery and then if that steel is being ejected, I want it ejected. I don't want to mix the two. So I don't want to have to recycle those barrels on the platform and then use the steel on the platform. But if someone else has suggested, well, actually, I think it might have been the same person because we got into a bit of a discussion about it, that scrapping the barrels into steel plate, putting that steel plate on a delivery cannon, and then bringing that back to bringing that back to here to make into more barrels is probably the more sensible way to go from a stack size. You get more steel plate in a delivery cannon than you will barrels. So that makes a lot of sense. It's probably not what I would have done if it was just me on my own playing this game. It's probably only going to happen because this person suggested it, which is not my preferred route. Now, I'm trying to play this as if it was just me on my own. You know, the comments in YouTube, and from that respect, it's kind of a diversion. It takes me away from my pure intents. Because if you'd have just left me onto my own devices, I probably would just be using barrels with a delivery cannon, and once I've done that a number of times, it's going to be difficult to get me out of my ways, even if it's not sensible. Anyway, barrels. Get to the point. I've got a gap. I've got several gaps. This gap here, which is currently occupied by my steam battery, which is my defense against the solar flares. This is not permanent. This was I just kind of put it here just because it was a nice space to use. Another gap to talk about, I'll come back to this in a second, is this gap here next to my nuclear power. Now, what I think I'm going to do, I don't think I'm going to need a steam battery once I've got this nuclear power going, but I think I'm going to fill this gap with one anyway, just in case, because I never know. And I've got the basic infrastructure for it. I'll just build a smaller one in here, you know, just in case. So I'm going to move this over here and reduce its size a little bit. And then that will leave this gap here next to, which I think this is green, red and blue chips. I think I'm going to put some sort of barreling setup in here. So I'm going to have to, in my mind, I'm going to need something to produce barrels in here and then distribute those barrels around the base. Primarily at this moment in time, it's only going to go to here. But who knows where those barrels are going to need to go in the future. Oh, where are you attacking me from? Let's have a quick look. Yeah, over here, right. And one of the parts that I need to expand. So barrels are going to get delivered mainly to here for the time being. Who knows where they're going to go in the future. And then the steel plate will return back into here. So I might need maybe, I don't know, let's set up several of these delivery capsule return points in here for several bases maybe. And then I want to exit that steel plate, make more barrels, ship it around the base. That's the current plan. In hindsight, there's a part of me that wishes I would have done the whole base with barreled lube. You know, barrel lube is quite a high important ingredient. High volume flows. There's a lot of it going to places. Now that I know what I know, there's a part of me that wishes I could have had just a whole dedicated lube and barrel set up right from the get-go. But from this point in time, I'm just going to barrel it next to the space station. So I'm going to make the barrels down here. I'm going to return the steel plate to here. We're going to move the barrels over to here along with some pipes of lube. And then I'm going to barrel the lube somewhere down here around about where this cargo silo is going. And then deliver the lube directly to just this silo. What I'm hoping to do is to line up these silos next to each other. So I'm imagining that lube and water as well, because we've only got a small portion of ice on this platform. So in my mind, I'm imagining that patch of ice is going to run out and I'm going to need to deliver water to the platform. So I'm going to also do that down here as well. I'm going to barrel up some water just for the future. And in my mind, I'm thinking that both lube and water is going to be important to be sent to other places around the galaxy. In my mind, those are the important ingredients. So I'm going to build those down, produce those down here, and hopefully, if I tile the silos correctly, I can feed those barrels into all of them, and that will be my galaxy-wide supply of water and lube. Obviously, we've got a huge supply of water right here. So that's my current thinking. or at least with the cargo anyway. I suppose I haven't talked. Yeah, carry on going. So this is the cargo landing pad. I mean, it's the same basic principle. What this is going to produce is the main bus that's going to feed the factory that's going on this platform. And in my mind, these gaps I can use for things that I'm producing on this platform that need to go to other places on this platform. Now these are so I can feed more stuff in the bus. Now, a couple of things. Firstly, these loaders. I'm not currently producing any of the space loaders on the platform, so you know how many of there's quite a few here. How many are here that I don't have? 63. That's going to be you know, once I get going, that's going to take quite some time to produce. For this first one, I might just set it up with stack inserters. I'm not sure that flow rate is all that important, so this might be a little bit over the top. That's the first thing. The second thing is that this is going to produce one ginormous bus. You know, this looks like, you know, pretty much the whole platform in depth before I even start dealing with the factory and all of the things that I need to make and the research labs and all that stuff. So I don't know, but I've got 18 different ingredients. I mean, 18 ingredients, 18 conveyor belts. That's kind of what this looks like. I feel like I didn't make the recipe list. I've got a recipe list and I've got a set of science, and this is me doing it. So I guess I'm going to need a whole load of scaffold. That's maybe one of the first things I need to set up on the platform. But anyway, that's this part of it. It might change a little bit by the time I get to space, but this is my general thinking. I'm going to hopefully set this up whilst I'm setting up the cargoes. I'm going to set this up somewhere else so that I can set up the circuit network here so that it matches with this. So that even if I have to replace the conveyor belts and all the loaders and stuff, I've got the basics set up with the chests and all of the circuit networks in the right place. I think that's the plan. So, I mean, there's really only one more thing to do, and that's to just get on with it. Okay, so this is the picture that I've had in my head since I kind of figured out that this is something that I would need. So we've got all of the ingredients that I'm going to initially load onto this rocket. You know, there might be a few other things, and that's why I've kind of left these gaps up here and up here, just in case there's a few other things that I need to add. Obviously, I haven't got an infinite amount of space to add more ingredients, but you know, there is a limit to how much I can foresee at this moment in time. I don't want to make a massive thing and then not use it. So we'll figure out if I need more things and how we deal with that later on. To go through the basic the basic setup, we've obviously got all of these materials. These are the things that the rocket needs and the platform needs. When a request, the satellite dish will receive the signals that I'm sending from the platform. It will report what the contents of each of those chests are. It will then send that down a green wire down this middle lane, and that's the lane that interacts with a combinator which kind of translate that signal into something the rest of the circuit network can use. Because, you know, we're essentially, just say blue chips for example, we're reporting blue chips onto a network here from those chests, but we're also going to be reporting blue chips from the silo as well as it fills up. So we need to I need to separate those two things. And that's how I've done it. I've separated this satellite dish only goes down this middle lane, and then everything else kind of goes down these two lanes. Now, the structure of the thing that I've built kind of represents the circuit network that's going on. You know, these two lanes are the things that are going to come along here and go to the rocket. This lane is going to come down. It does descend into a bit of mess up here. We'll get to that in a moment. So, if the platform does not need an ingredient, then the light won't turn on at all. It will just be off. If the platform does need an ingredient, then the light will be yellow, and that's the trigger that I'm using to activate these inserters around the silo. So when one of these turns yellow, the relevant inserter will turn on, and then when the silo reaches the right amount of ingredients on the rocket silo that are prescribed, that the thing that I put in that list, then the light will go green. And that's why the water is green at the moment. It's because I've set that limit to 0, because we've got water, we've got ice on the platform, we don't need water, so I'm not going to be loading any water for the moment. But the whole system is going to be set up just in case I need that. And not necessarily even for just this platform. It might be other places where that water needs to go, and those barrels are going to go to other places. So that's this basic main panel, and then at the top we've got kind of a status of what's going on with the rocket. So how much fuel is going in, and it will light up and then go to the end and then go green when it's full. Same with the amount of segments. We need 100. How many of those are in here? That's what these lights will show. Now the cargo, because we're going to be in a situation where some of the platform might not necessarily need some of these ingredients. We've got 22 I think here. Say the platform only needs a dozen of those ingredients. We potentially still want that rocket to launch. So I've also connected up all these yellow lights to another circuit network, and that goes to cargo, and it basically counts the amount of green lights and the amount of yellow lights, and it will give me a proportion of how many green lights there are in proportion to the amount of yellow lights. Obviously, if the light isn't yellow, then we don't need that ingredient, so it doesn't count. So that's what this cargo is doing. It's measuring the proportion of green lights over yellow lights, so that when all of the green lights are on, then we can launch a rocket. But we might not necessarily want to launch that rocket if, say, if the platform only needs 5 ingredients. That might be a waste of the expense of launching a rocket. So I've also set a limit in here that we need at least 12 green lights. So 12 ingredients, that's a number I can play around with. If we need 12 ingredients and all of those are green and all of the other lights are off, then that's when we can launch a rocket. If we've got 14, 15, 16, then that's fine. If we're still loading, if any of those lights are yellow, if we're still loading the cargo rocket, even if we've got those 12 ingredients that are green, the rocket won't launch because there's a yellow light, and it checks to see whether there's any yellow lights, and that's part of the check. Right, and that's where this check comes in. So this is basically a summary. We've got a set of lights that are just red or green depending on whether the fuel is right. We've got a pair of lights which are depending on whether the segments are right. We've got a pair of lights depending on whether the cargo is right. We've got a pair of lights depending on whether we've got those 12 ingredients, the minimum amount of 12 ingredients, so we don't launch when we've got only 5 green lights. And then we've got a final check which checks all the other checks and then returns a green light when all the other are green lights. And then that's the trigger. 5 green lights up here, that's the trigger for launching the rocket. That's the basic system that's at play in this. Now, I showed this to my buddy on Discord, and he's much more of a computer programmer than me. I'm an engineer, really. The analogy I made to him was that he's more of a software guy, so he's trying to push me in directions to program and code stuff, whereas I'm more of a hardware guy, so this makes sense to me, this field of combinators. I can deal with the field of combinators. I'm not necessarily in what he's saying is wrong, but it's just I can't understand it. He was trying to, what is it? These. Can I access something in here? Oh, I don't really want to play around with it. Let's have a look. He was trying to get me to play around with these. Now I've tried playing around with these with the racetrack, and I couldn't figure it out. I spent a significant amount of time trying to figure it out, and all I was trying to do was time how long it took me to get around the lap. It was just one very, very simple thing that I was trying to achieve. I just couldn't get it right. So the idea of trying to, if I couldn't get it right on one very, very simple thing, the idea of trying to force that on a system of 22 ingredient, this appeals to me much more, all of these combinators. So that's my system. There might be challenges in the future where that changes, but for the moment, I think this will work. Now, there's a lot of wires, and it's entirely possible that somewhere in here is a mistake. I'm not ruling that out. Hopefully I can figure it out when I get there. Hopefully. It's not certain of that fact. There's a lot of individual circuit networks. I've got a circuit network with a satellite dish. I've got a circuit network with the rocket silo. And then I've got an individual circuit network for the fuel. Another one for the segments. Another one for the cargo. Another one for the check. And another one for the trigger. So what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... I don't know, 6 or 7 individual circuit networks imposed on the same kind of area of the map. Let's see how it goes. There may well be significant problems in here. It's difficult to really know without linking it all together and trying to see what happens. Which kind of leads me on to the next thing, which is obviously I need to build the rocket station on the base. Now, I've been trying to figure out... Now, my problem that I've been wrestling with is all those conveyor belts. That's a mess. It's a complete mess, all those conveyor belts, the way I had laid it out before. How do I come up with a system of simplifying that and reducing the number of conveyor belts down? So, I went to bed thinking about it, and I think the ideal scenario is that... I think in my mind, I was trying to put this landing pad along an edge of the platform and then trying to feed the resources through like I would in a normal bus. But I think that's the wrong way to approach it. I think the way to approach it is to put the landing pad in the middle and then come out in all directions, have flows of materials in all directions. So that's kind of where my mind is going at the moment. My first thought was, well, I've got 5 sciences. Let's immediately condense them down into 3 belts. And that's what these kind of systems are going to be doing. So I've got the 5 ingredients. They're going to come down into the 3 belts. This belt is hopefully going to deliver the space science, which is coming from here. These are going to be the space manufactories. Over here, we're going to deal with lube and water and cosmic water. Although this part, depending on what happens in the future, this part might have to move around. At the moment, I'm going to confine myself in with this setup and use this whole side of the landing pad. I'm dealing with each 4 sides of the landing pad as each individual things now. So this one's going to deal with science. This one's going to deal with cosmic water and lube. This one's going to deal with the main bus. And then what happens up here is potential for future. I might even need to feed some more ingredients across. I don't know how this is going to work out. What I was trying to do was just get my thought process on the map. Try and get something down as like, right, yeah, okay, I can deal with that. That makes me happy. As a basic system. I don't want to build the whole platform here because that's a complete waste. I just wanted to get a starting point so that I could, think about it and how to go around actually building it. But I think this is the sort of thing that I'm going to start with. But I suppose that's the next thing. This is the next thing that I need to do. I need to go to space. I need to make this thing. And then I need to hook that circuit network up to this one so that it can start requesting the right resources, and then I can start hooking all of this up to see if it loads the right way. I want to have a look at a few rocket launches. I want to directly see them as they go up there before I let it kind of do its own thing. There's a fair amount of testing. I'm certain there's going to be some errors in this, but I need to build the thing that this is dependent on in order to find those errors. So this is the next thing. Let's get up into space. Let's start messing around. I was about to swear there. I don't normally do that. Let's start messing around with the base on the platform. Yeah, get some space science. Get some proper factory stuff in space. Yeah. Right, we have quite a few things to cover here, so let's get into it. First stop, space. So here's the little space platform, and it's more or less exactly as I kind of planned out when I was setting up my control panel for this thing. You know, I've got the landing pad that feeds down into the science. I've got these are the manufactories that are making the space science. They're going to feed into the science, and then I've got all the conveyor belt stuff. Now, I want more stuff up here. I want to be making a whole lot of stuff up here. In my mind, this is like a starter factory for space stuff. There's just one slight issue with that, from what is my plan, and that's this patch of ice. It's right in the way. This is where I want to build some stuff. So, you know, if this was on the base planet, I would just remove it with the ore remover tool. But I feel like that's just the wrong way to go from a strategy perspective. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to mine all of the ice in this patch. I'm going to put it in some boxes, and then I can use this patch of land to build stuff on, which is really what I want from an aesthetic perspective. I don't want to have to leave this here for hours and hours and hours and have to build around it. So, you know, I've got plenty to be doing in Navis. I still don't know how to pronounce it. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to do it whilst I'm here. This was something that's in my mind, it popped into my mind last night, and it's like, this is the first time I've been to space. This is the first opportunity. Oh, I've got to set up the time lapse first. Right. Yeah, let's do this first, and then I can talk about some other stuff on the base planet. Novice, however you pronounce it. Okay. Time lapse. Sweet. Okay, so that's problem number one sorted. Issue number two that I have up here is that there's one thing I haven't really allowed for at this moment in time. Well, I have, but as far as your understanding, I haven't. So there's one thing that comes as a result of these rockets landing on this landing pad that doesn't get used by this factory, that kind of arrives as a result, and that's these cargo rocket sections. They just kind of arrive, and I can't do anything with them. I can't put them in a delivery cannon. I can't scrap them. They're just here. So, you know, in my mind, if we're getting like, I don't know, 10, 15, what is it, 20% base recovery, so 100, we're getting 20 of these cargo rocket sections basically every time a rocket lands on here. What's stopping us from constructing a rocket up here that's going to deliver all of these resources? I'm still thinking about these barrels. I'm potentially thinking about scrap. There's a fair amount of scrap up here, and that feels like something I might have to deal with long term. So if I can construct the rocket out of these rocket parts with the parts that are arriving from Novice, and I can use. I've already got some rocket fuel arriving, so I can construct some liquid fuel. I can build a rocket up here and deliver all of my scrap back to the base planet without having to worry about delivery cannons. And you know, from my perspective, these cargo rocket sections, I see these as free. Like the rocket has served its purpose from my perspective. So these I feel like I've got free. I can do with them as I please. The idea of so the thing that bothers me, is the idea of launching a rocket from this platform that has to go to. That doesn't make any contextual sense. You know, really, we should just be throwing stuff back at Novice. You know, just gravity will do its job. The idea of launching a rocket, but that's kind of by the by. So those are the two issues that I really wanted to address: the ice and the rocket sections. Because we're going to talk about this in just a moment. The next thing I want to talk about on the base planet, because this, I think we're done for the moment. I'm not going to be working on this for the time being until this ice patch is done and dusted. So let's go back and let's have a look at the factory, the main factory. Sweet, right, okay. Next thing I want to talk about are barrels. Yeah. Right, so this is a bit of real estate that was previously being occupied by my steam battery for the defense against the solar flares, and I've demolished that. I haven't quite built the replacement thing yet, but I've filled this gap. Well, I would say nicely, but really this is the kind of stuff that I could have made. I could have made it any size. I could have made it smaller. I could have made it bigger, depending on how I felt or what gap I was trying to fill. So, first stop at the bottom. This has kind of got some layers to it. These are all the missile defense. So, what I had previously. Why is this not? Ooh, okay. I haven't got any. Just use one of these. So previously, all of these Meteor defense. These were in the main bus. I think they were up here somewhere. And I've been kind of thinking about trying to find a hole for them, because that's not a really nice place to put them. So I figured, well, this is a bit of an exercise in gap fill. Let's put them down here. So I got loads of them. I mean, I had 8 of them originally, and 8 seemed to do the job 90% of the time, but I did still get an occasional Meteor that made its way through. So I've got 20 now. I don't think anything is getting through now. So the next section in this the next layer in this sandwich is these 8 cargo landing pads. So my new thinking is that wherever I'm launching resources off to, I'm imagining that I'm going to have to launch resources off to every planet I'm kind of dealing with here. I'm also going to be landing cargo sections on that planet as a result of that launch. So I think as a galaxy-wide solution, using those rocket parts to subsequently deliver scrap, that could be really useful. And there's going to be places where the only thing I'm delivering to planets are cargo rocket sections. And I think I'm just going to have set up 2 cargo rocket silos on each base. One to deal with primary materials that will go to the place on this base planet where they'll be processed, and another one that will deal with scrap. So I've got 8 landing pads here for potentially 8 other bases, one of which I've labelled. I'm thinking at some point I might put some lights in here with some circuit networks, make it look a bit fancy. But anyway, that's my thinking. This is where I'm going now. So I was originally planning on putting like delivery capsules in here, but so I can't put barrels. I can't put barrels on a delivery capsule anyway. So that plan was out the that doesn't work. There's no recipe for that. And the idea of recycling that into steel, I still don't like. Anyway, this one works. I mean, I've got all these cargo rocket sections. Let's use them. All right. So next layer, we've got a whole lot of barrel stuff. So we've got the barrel manufacturing either side, and then a whole lot of storage. So in my mind, if we're dealing with, I don't know, several intergalactic bases, who knows what kind of, if you've seen my barrel video, then the thing that I worry about is the thing called what I've termed barrel flux. And barrel flux is essentially all of the barrels that exist in this entire factory galaxy system that have been unloaded but haven't reached this point yet. So there could be, I don't know, an hour or so between the barrels being unloaded of liquid, of lube, say on my space platform. There could be an hour between that barrel getting unloaded on the platform and the lube being used, and that barrel returning back to here. So potentially I could have just an enormous amount of flux. But I also know that we're not dealing with a huge amount of flow. We're not talking like millions and millions of barrels here. Anyway, I filled the gap. I think it will do the job. I guess we're going to find out one way or the other. So these are where the barrels begin. This is where they start their journey. And for the time being, they're only going to one place. And that place is my rocket control panel. So let's wander over there. Alright. So these are where the barrels are being used at the moment. We've got our conveyor belts of lube barrels and barreled water. Nice, ready to go. Obviously we're not going to be using the barreled water for the time being. We're going to have a shed load of ice to deal with, and that I'm going to want to deal with that as a priority because it's now occupying a box, and those boxes are going to get in the way at some point. But from the control panel's perspective, not much has changed really, except that I went to bed last night and I thought of a scenario that I hadn't accounted for, and I need to well, I need to fix the panel. I needed to do something else. So what I'm worrying about now, at this moment in time, is that all of these lights are based on the boxes, the steel boxes on the platform, and they're going to trigger the inserters that are in this rocket silo. But once I launch the rocket, there's obviously going to be a time delay between the materials being removed from this cargo rocket silo and them arriving in that steel chest. So in that time delay, this circuit network is going to tell these inserters to start putting more of those resources on the silo. So I'm going to end up in a situation where the cargo silo is going to be loaded with all of these, because or at least, no, not all of them, all of the ones that were required now before the rocket launched. It's going to load more of them, and that's not I don't want that. I want just the things the platform needs. So what I need to introduce is a time delay. I need to introduce some kind of time delay that prevents these inserters from picking up from these belts until these resources have arrived. I don't want these inserters to pick stuff up until the chests on the platform have been delivered to. And my thinking at the moment, is to use let me get this right. My thinking is to not load the cargo rocket silo until the full rocket has been constructed, and that I'm going to use that construction time as the time delay. So I'm going to set what I have in here is an extra combinator that I put in here for a specific purpose, and then I didn't set it up, and I was like, oh, at some point I set it up here to try and make some sort of priority system, so that the system felt like the science was more valuable to deliver to the platform than this other stuff. So if the platform needed some of this science, then it would treat this as a higher priority, and I was going to use this combinator to do that, but it was some job that I was going to leave down the line. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to introduce that trigger. I'm going to put in another combinator in here that looks for whether the rocket is complete or not, and then it won't. And then these inserters won't start inserting until that rocket is complete. That's the trigger that I'm going to use. We'll see if it works. I've been thinking about this for trying to find. I think there might be a scenario in here which completely breaks it. I think there might be, but I can't be certain of it. It's just a nagging thing in the back of my mind that there's something that I've missed, because this feels like not enough combinators. It feels like the system that I have is much more complicated, and that I might need more of these. But anyway, we are at the point where we're going to find out one way or the other. Well, at least I'm going to run around and fix these combinators so that they do this so that they're looking for the rocket completion, this new trigger that I'm going to add. But once that's done, we're at the point where the only way we're going to find out one way or the other whether this is set up right or whether it's even going to work is to do it. So let me run around and fix these combinators, and let's launch this rocket and see what happens, because that's the only way we're going to find out. Alright, so I've just been sitting here looking at this thing, kind of contemplating my life and the decisions that I've made to get me to this point. This thing makes me a little bit anxious. I'll be completely honest. The idea of all of these circuit networks, all of these moving cogs, the idea of all these things potentially going wrong, it's cool. I'm really excited. There's 50% excited, 50% anxious that something's going to go catastrophically wrong. So, okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to save it. This point here. Let's create a new save point. Cargo. And let's get these materials in and see what happens. Thanks, research. Right, okay. I'm really interested to see if the fuel thing works. Oh, it is working. It's filling up. Oh, we've got a problem. Okay, I can deal with that. Right, so how are we doing? Segments, rocket. I think what we're missing is a thingamabobby capsule. Got one of those. And now we're loading. Oh, hey. So the light for yellow. Okay. Okay, I got this. This is all looking good. All looking really good. Very pleasing. What has happened here? I've run out of power. Has that messed around with the circuits? Something's happened. Something's broken. Oi! Oi, oi, oi. 3 equals 2. Why is 3 equal 2? Why are you doing what you're doing? It must be a power thing. Where's all that power coming? I need to pause and I need to investigate.
A few moments later.
Okay, I got it. I found the source of my problem. It's electricity. So when the satellite dish breaks contact because it's not got enough electricity, then it reports back to the network that all of the chests are empty, and then suddenly we need everything. So the circuit network I've set up works fine whilst we've got enough electricity. And I've got to be honest, I didn't think I had any problems with my electricity. I thought I was all good. I didn't see... I don't know where this is coming from, but it feels like what I need now is more solar panels. More freaking solar panels. Could cry out. I've already got so many of the damn things that are not going to be permanent, that are going to get demolished. But I need more. I need more, so let's get building some more solar panels. And once I've done that, then we can have... In fact, I'm going to go back to my save point. Yeah, go back to my save point. More solar panels. We've learnt nothing. And then I'll do it all again. So, quite a lot of time has passed since I last spoke into this microphone, and not a lot of it has been spent actually doing anything productive. Most of it has been spent thinking about stuff, because I find myself in a bit of a problem, or I did anyway. But I'm skipping parts of the story. Let's go back. So, I need solar panel for the base because I need more power. I obviously wasn't producing enough power before, so I need more power. So, I've added more solar panels down here. Now, I've done it with absolutely no decorum. I've just boshed them down because I just didn't care. And, you know, my mind was on other things. My mind was on how I was going to solve this problem that I've just uncovered. So, you know, these are temporary. They're going to come down at some point. That'll do the job. So, whilst I was doing this, so that's the base power fixed. Okay, so... Let's set up some power that's dedicated just towards this satellite dish. So it's got its own supply. It will never run out, no matter what the rest of the base is doing. So that's what I've got over here. This should be, hopefully, enough solar panels and accumulators to power this thing day and night, no matter what. Now, it's kind of... I've got the power coming from here, so that's powering this substation. I've also got the base power coming from this substation. So it's sandwiched in the middle. It's going to get plenty of power. It should be fine. But... and this is where my mind was going. What if I lose power on the platform? You know, because the problem is that the connection between the transmission connection problem. You know, that can be caused by no power on this base, but it can also be caused by no power on the platform. So what happens if I run out of power on the platform? And that is eminently possible. In fact, it's very, very likely. In fact, you know, as I build that base and expand it, it's going to need more power, and there will be points where it hasn't got enough, and I might not notice for some time, and in that time, this whole silo is going to completely balk itself. It's just going to completely ruin. Everything's going to break. So I needed to come up with a system of recognizing when that transmission broke, so that I could stop this system from doing anything, and it wouldn't break itself in the meantime. Now, I had a slight problem kind of trying to get to a point where I had a trigger, but I have got one, and the trigger that I've got is that essentially that no output is coming from the satellite dish. If I'm getting no signals from the satellite dish whatsoever, you know, essentially if all of those chests are empty, and there should never be a situation where all of those chests are fully empty. You know, there'd always be a bottleneck somewhere. Something will hold something up. So the only reason in my mind why this satellite dish will give off no signals is because the transmission is broken. And so that's the trigger that I've used to kind of stop the system from working. But that led me down kind of a little rabbit hole of, okay, now I've got my trigger. How do I deal with it? Because what do I do with the trigger? You know, I was finding what I was trying to do was I was trying to introduce all of the individual elements that the cargo rocket might need, the full amounts, so that when the system looks at it, it will see that the whole system is full and no further ingredients are required. But I was getting some. Okay, so I was whipping out these wild cards, which I don't really know how to use. I'm still kind of figuring, you know. But I was using these wild cards, and you know that felt like the sensible thing to do, and I couldn't get it to work. Or at least, what was happening was that it was like ending up in a recursive loop where everything was flashing, you know, for no reason at all, or at least no reason that I could figure out. So that's what I've spent most of this time doing. It's just been looking at this control panel, trying out different configurations of combinators, figuring out what's going wrong, how to, you know, and look. I had a chat with my mate on Discord, and he was free, so he's actually popped into this game for about half an hour. He's had a look around, he's asked me some questions, and he's completely changed my understanding of the circuit networks in this game with one very, very simple comment. And once he made that comment, you know, he kind of started pushing me to change things. I was like, I need to figure out, because you know what he'd said was so revolutionary in my mind. I had to think. I couldn't think straight. So he went off. I sat down and thought about it. I've spent 5 minutes laying down one combinator and changing some settings, and the whole thing works perfectly. Let me just take you through it, because in my mind it's just incredible. So when I set up these triggers in all of this stuff, my general approach is to use value equals 0 as the default state, and then value equals 1 as the trigger. You know, if I've got a pump or an inserter that I want to turn on or off, then I will generally look for the thing that's based on, and convert that into a signal of 0 or 1, and that's what I will use for the combinator or the pump to engage. But that doesn't work when we start talking about these recursive, what I'm going to call these recursive signals, these wildcards, because the 1 in that signal starts adding up. Every tick, it adds another 1. And that's always been the problem that I've had with these wildcards. It's always ended up in some recursive loop where it just keeps going and going and going to infinity. And this is the problem I have with my racetrack. This is a real spiel. This might go on for a little while. This is the problem that I had with my racetrack. I spent hours trying to fix the racetrack so that it could record a lap time. And I was using a trigger of value equals 1. And my mate from Discord, he's popped in here and he said, why don't you use a value of 0 as the trigger and a value of -1 as the default state? Because then when the trigger engages, the value of 0 doesn't cause some recursive loop. It immediately cancels itself out. And it's completely blown my mind. I'm still struggling with the implications of it. You know, so that's all I've done really. When he left, I came up here, I set up this combinator here so that the default state is -1. When all of the signals are 0, then we output Z equals 1. That makes Z equals 0. That's my trigger. And that's what my recursive... And it's fixed everything. It's completely fixed everything. Everything works. Just beautifully. Like at the moment, okay, so at the moment, I've turned off the signal network, so nothing is connected, and everything is a white light. So the whole signal is disconnected. At the moment, because of the way that I've set up this circuit network, all of these combinators are disengaged. So if there was a rocket being constructed at this moment in time, it wouldn't get loaded. It's just beautiful. And I've got set up these lights so I can tell at a glance whether it's connected or not. But really, looking at this panel, I can tell straight away because all the lights are white. So we can connect this straight back up, and it will show. Oh no! What's happened here? There was me all confident. I thought I'd got it right. I've got it working, but I haven't. It's not quite right. The lights, the correct lights are on, but they're the wrong color. I'm gonna fix that. We'll deal with that later on. So now that I've got this all fixed, I want to try turning this on again. I want to try seeing what happens. Surely now I've got enough power. I've got for the base. I've got dedicated power to the satellite dish. I've got a fail-safe mechanism in case the connection breaks. What can go wrong now? Surely I've covered every base. I've got every eventuality covered. Surely. Let me fix these lights, or at least investigate, and then let's pump some more materials in and see what happens. I'm going to save it again, and then we'll find out. We're gonna, yeah. Much tinkering later, I think I've got it to work. I think I've called success on this thing a couple of times now, and it's made a fool of me. But I think I've got it right. And the check that I've been using now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect the satellite dish from the platform, and the way that you can tell that the check is that this whole thing is working is that none of these inserters will do anything. At the moment we've got one inserter picking up low density structure. That's the only thing we're short of, and even that one will stop working. The low density structure should back up. So let's do it. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. Forget about all the lights. Doesn't matter. This is the only thing that's important. So now that we've got that sorted, and I'm happy, and I think it's reliable, think being the operative word, let's get some stuff into space. Now, because I've been running this check whilst with a live supply, this whole rocket has been polluted a little bit. I've got some science on here and some other bits and pieces which the platform doesn't need. And we are currently still short on low density structure by about 250, but I'm going to launch it anyway. You know, we're into the process of experimentation, so let's just see what happens. We are going to, let's get this right. We're going to land on the Norvis Orbit cargo pad. I named it. Launch trigger manual. Norvis Orbit. Let's save. And let's go. Excellent. We landed where we should have done. Everything seems to have worked. Superb. Happy days. I am very happy with that. Good stuff. Right, so I think that's it for this episode. Doesn't really feel like we've done much but talk about this freaking control panel. But it's done now. Oh, and also another thing to mention, the ice patch is gone, so we can start building up here. So that's clearly what I need to be doing. But for this episode, that's it. I hope it's been good. Till next time.